What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. This, of course, is the podcast where we dive into the deep, dark, murky waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rex Ruger. That's REXXX. You might also know me as the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the Hair Metal High Priest, and most importantly, a.k.a. One Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. That's right. Take a look. Search your feelings. You all know it to be true that you are looking at the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a lot of grams. I got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man, Mr. Wop Boppa Loo Boppa Wop Bam Bam Shazam. Hot damn. Oh, I'm feeling good. And most importantly, I am looking good. And so is my audience out there. That for me is made possible by the one and only product. If you want the quaff like Roth. There's my noon whistle going off in the background. It is 12 o'clock in upstate New York. And I am sending a link to my guest. Coming to you as always from the Lavender Lounge of Love. Joined as always by the great Keith Hernandez Puppet. Couldn't do it without him. The legend himself. Whoops. And of course, this place, legendary, bringing you legends. Love it here in the Lavender Lounge of Love. It is my utopia. And today I'm very excited. This is, of course, the No Frills podcast. I am Mr. Lo-Fi, Mr. Crude, Mr. Give you the basic meat and potatoes, because that's what you people want, and I know it. No frills, but you get plenty of thrills. You get to look at the face of a rock star. And DNA testing is almost conclusive to prove just that. And then we will dispel of all this bullshit. Everybody will know. And it's also the No Frills podcast because you see me half-assedly doing my technology. So there's also that. But I digress. I will tell you one thing, though, that Love Sword is still looking for virtuoso level players. May I throw that in there? So if you want to be in my glam sleaze metal passion project and be the band to back up the man, hit me up. Serious inquiries only. You better have the chops. That's right. You better have the chops. You better be a full-on rock star to keep up with moi. And at the time of this recording, the YouTube channel is doing very well. If you're watching this, please like, please subscribe. Help a brother out. Also follow us on the almighty Facebook. Seems like you can't exist nowadays without one. You better have your Facebook. And today I'm very excited about today's guest. This is a guy that I've been running down for a while, man. Trying my damnedest to get him on. In my opinion, he's the Canadian Paul McCartney. There, I said it. I don't know, maybe people will say, how dare you? Sir Paul McCartney? But I feel like, hey, I'm going to toot the horn of Glass Tiger, the Beatles of Canada. I love those guys, man. Such great songs, man. Such a big part of my childhood, man. I'm going to start getting misty-eyed. Pops. Careful, I'm getting emotional here. Hey, I love anything that takes me back to the 80s, though. I mean, what's not to love about being taken back to the 80s? Everything about the 80s was magical. Lest we never forget it. A great time. Keith finally remembers the 80s. 1986 New York Mets, world champions. In big part because of that man. Number 17 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. And let me also take this time while we're waiting for our guest here to let people know that at the time of this recording, as I said, the subscribers doing extremely well, steadily trickling in, but steady is always good. Slow and steady wins the race, right, folks? So up over 270 subscribers. There are lots of great episodes up there, man. Please, if you go to the channel, peruse. These are people that are just insanely talented, each and every one of them in their own way, and have accomplishments, accolades, and the conversations with them were epic. They are on the channel for a reason, deservedly so. These are people that I admire and love for their talents, and have either come across them or sought them out in some way, shape, or form. But I love what they do. And at the time of this recording, there's 130 some odd episodes up there. So if you're looking through there, you're bound to find something. Musicians, comedians, boxers, actors. I mean, a little bit of everything. So, and while we're waiting for our guest here, maybe I should put on my grandpa glasses here and actually get to work here, huh? I was contacting him by email, so hopefully we will run him down here. Never easy to get a big rock star, never. And I know a little something about that. Being cut from the cloth of a major rock star, and then going on to become one myself. Certainly in body, appearance, and spirit. By the way, it's only noon, and I've already had quite a fair amount of marijuana in my system, full disclosure. And I may continue it. It's a day off from work. Part of today's episode could be brought to you by the amazing Cake Pen. These are some good, potent THC pens. These things smack, as the kids say nowadays. Yeah. So, what else? Well, let me get back to all the past episodes, though, because I think I was in the middle of trying to make a poignant statement here about all the past episodes and perusing through them, and how much I do hope that people will go back and peruse them. And that being said, I also want to throw out a huge thank you to all the people that have come on as guests already. It's been fun chopping it up with each and every one of you, man. And along the way, we've definitely had some laughs. It's just great when people come on and just don't have that air of pretentiousness. Of course, I certainly have an audience, and certainly have a interest that I indulge myself by having on the show. I mean, boxing, no secret, fight posters up. And one of my favorite sports, probably my favorite sport. Not just a casual, a very in-depth fan, going back for years and years. So I'd love to have boxers on. And I also okay, so that was my guest. He is going to try here, so be patient, folks. But geez, I was in the middle of another point, and this is what marijuana and multitasking does to a guy with a 50-year-old brain. But I was in the middle of saying something poignant. I believe it was somewhere along the lines of thanking all the wonderful people that have come on here. But enough about that bullshit. My guest is here. So let's get down to it with him on Pod Scum. You've listened to me enough. Hoo-ha, hoo-ha. Always got to look your best. Always got to look your best for a rock star. Always got to look your best for a rock star. That's what I always say, Alan FREW. That's what I say.
Really? Can you hear me?
I want to come on and I want to look my best in the presence of a guy who I absolutely love. I'm glad I finally got to run you down and do this, man. Thank you so much. It's a real honor getting the chance to talk to you.
You're welcome. Can you hang on 2 seconds? I just made a cup.
Sure. Of course. Yes. Yeah. This is, of course, when he comes back, I will certainly, I will certainly toot his horn to the best of my ability. When he does sit back down with his cup of tea and we jump into this conversation, this is, of course, the phenomenally talented, amazing Alan FREW from Glass Tiger. I said it before in my preamble. before getting him on here that Alan and the boys are the Canadian Beatles. There, I said it. I mean, it's high praise, but I just, seeing somebody that's written songs that are such like an integral part of your growing up is just, it's awesome. I mean, music is just that gift that just keeps on giving. And is it still rewarding to you, even at this stage of your life, to create new music?
Yeah, absolutely. You never grow weary of hearing people come to you and tell you what the songs meant to them. I don't take it lightly. It's an honor to have written these songs that are such a part of people's lives, for sure.
Yeah. Personally, and or as a band, when everything went batshit crazy a couple of years ago and COVID happened, how did that affect you guys, personally and as a band? Did that derail a lot of stuff that you guys had going on at the time? What kind of impact did that have on you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. The music industry shut down completely, really, and we had the opportunity to go over to Europe and do some stuff, including my homeland of Scotland. We had an opportunity to do half a dozen gigs down in the States. We lost all of that, and then the Canadian industry shut down, and we basically did nothing for 2 years. On a personal note, I just sort of hunkered down, and I've been working on a book, and I just did some writing, tried to stay creative. The sad part is that when the music industry fired up again, the bands were all anxious to get back out there, but a lot of the people who work for the crews, the sound companies, the lighting companies, the truckers, I don't even know that they're still back to 100%. It's still difficult to put a lot of shit together.
Yeah, I work in the healthcare industry, so my day job is as a nurse, and certainly post-COVID, the healthcare field absolutely decimated. I mean, it's not a pretty place to be these days.
Did you know that I am an RN? Did you know that?
That is a tidbit that I do not have here on my sheet, but that is an awesome factoid. I love that.
I worked. I began as an orderly. I worked as an orderly for several years, and then I was a pathologist assistant. I did autopsies for 4 years, and then I went back to college and took my RN. I was a registered nurse.
Wow. Yeah. See, I'm an LPN. I work in a nursing home, and my wife is an RN. She delivers babies. So we kind of laugh that we're kind of seeing them on both ends of the spectrum. You know what I mean? Like, she's got a lot of life coming into the world. And unfortunately, working in the geriatric setting, I obviously see a lot of loss.
I did a lot of geriatrics as an orderly.
It kind of goes with the territory. I'm eager to know, though, because I'm looking at you and I'm thinking of all the great songs. Particularly, take me behind like what your creative process is like when you're going to create music. What kind of creative are you? Are you that guy that gets sparks all day long, or are you a guy that's I talk to a lot of guys who almost treat it like a job, like I'm going to go in from 12 to 5 and I'm going to write music?
I don't treat it 12 to 5, but I do think of it more as now I need to write. I just have to do this today. Or someone is asking for something specific. And again, it's kind of like a job where you go, okay, I need to deliver this. I don't run about pen and paper in hand every day looking for inspiration. And then I'm always inspired first by music, by whether it's someone just sitting on a simple piano tinkling away, or a guitar, or whether it's a heavy loop. But I always get inspired by music first, which then inspires me to go after the melody, the la la las, and kind of like John Lennon used to call it gobbledygook. I tend to just ramble a little bit, capturing that melody. Occasionally, some words shoot into my brain immediately, like that happened with Someday, that happened with Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone.
Yeah.
And there are probably several others, but I don't worry so much about the lyrics at the beginning. I worry more about the melody.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, and you'll certainly be able to relate to this, that, the nurse in me obviously has to ask, you very publicly, you had a stroke in 2015. Personally, how is your health right now? How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing, as far as a stroke survivor goes, I'm fantastic. But having had a stroke, I'm sure anybody listening that's maybe suffered one, or a heart attack or some kind of trauma like that, you're never the same person you were before you had it. You carry it with you. It's just the way it is. I have a few little things that go on in this hand and this arm that remind me of it. And then, of course, just mentally, you're always the person. I'm the guy that had the stroke, so it follows you around, and you just have to learn to deal with it. And that's it. But other than that, I'm doing extremely well.
Good. And at this juncture, of you guys and your career, how has the narrative changed in your life as far as like how you approach things that you're going to do? Like you guys, at the stage of your career now, do you guys do a lot of touring still? And how do you pick and choose? You guys have an itinerary that's comfortable for you guys?
Yeah, I just came back from 2 gigs, back weekend to weekend, both in Alberta, Canada. I have my own band that I take out. I've got this band called 80 to 90 Rewind, where I do all classic 80s and 90s hits. No Glass Tiger. I have a gig coming up on Thursday night. Glass Tiger has an itinerary that'll carry us through to late November, early December. Predominantly this year, it's all Canada. We love the idea of coming south, but as you can imagine, a fan will just write to you and say, "Hey, come to Chicago. Why don't you come to Chicago?" But it's not like that. It's too difficult just to, pack up and say, "Hey, we're going down to Chicago for 1 gig," to try and figure out how many people will come. So we're always investing in ideas of, we went over to the UK and we did a festival and we did a club, and they were great. Like I say, we had some dates in Germany. We lost them because of COVID, but we're always open to ideas of being part of something that would bring us down to the States, but it's not easy.
Yeah. And so you brought up a few minutes back a book. Is this a book in like the traditional sense when like musicians give us like a memoir?
This is a book of fiction based on my life.
Okay.
The subtext is the boy who became a hooligan, the hooligan who became a healer, the healer who became a pop star.
Yeah, I love it. What a phenomenal and so what inspires you to write the book? Was this suggested to you? Was this something that that you felt you had to do?
Well, I wrote a book in 2007 that was much more, we'll call it motivational. It would have been on the motivational shelves. It's called The Action Sand, and it did very well. But I approached that book way differently than most, motivational writers would do. And people just adored the stories. And I did a lot of public speaking, and people adored the stories. So I started to look at my life, and I got together with a writer who, by the way, if you hear that noise in the background, it's my cat.
I've got 3 of them myself. I know. I'm a cat parent myself. Yeah.
So
plenty of them running around here.
So I got together with this writer, and we wrote a screenplay. And as of yet, it hasn't been picked up because it's a tough game. But I decided to dig in and write the book. So I'm writing it right now. I'm just filled with stories. And the great thing about basing it on your life is you can dabble in the truth and you can dabble in the fiction and let them cross over, and people can decide for themselves what they think is
Right.
true.
Yeah, and you actually seem happy though, because a lot of people, when they're approaching, writing their memoir or writing their biography, during the process and oftentimes after the process, they talk about how horrible it was to dredge up a lot of stuff. You genuinely seem happy and exuberant about this book.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, once again, in this woke cancel culture environment, I don't know if the book would get attacked in any way. I'm just writing it from the perspective that it takes place approximately from the late 50s, when I come into the world, through the 60s and 70s and 80s, and anything that my protagonist gets up to will deal in that era. And then, he's not dealing in. I mean, eventually it'll catch up with today, sort of, but I don't think I have anything to answer for in terms of, it's just life, the life that a character's living at that time. I mean, it would be like trying to write a Western and bring today's culture into it. It's impossible. So you'd have to write a Western from that perspective. I mean, a heavy duty one would be Quentin Tarantino going through the shit that he goes through when he's asked all the time about how he goes about it. Well, what he's writing about and when he was writing about it. So, that's it.
And at this stage of the musical side of your career, is Glass Tiger still creating and writing and making new music?
Absolutely. We if you go on Spotify or any of the apps that people use to bring in their music, we've got we put right after my stroke, I wasn't well enough to take on the challenge of writing new music, but I got together with a partner and also Sam from Glass Tiger, and we created we were supposed to do a brand new one for the 30th anniversary when I had my stroke. So we put one out called 31, where we took all the classic stuff down in Nashville and we just sort of reimagined it. And we did these lovely versions of Someday and my song Healing Hands, Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone, My Town. And that was enough for me to build up my strength. Then on the stroke of the anniversary of the 33rd anniversary, we did an EP called 33, where we put half a dozen brand new songs on it. And then last year, I had been bugged for the longest time to do a holidays/Christmas album, and I'm not a believer, so I'd fought against it for quite some time. I didn't want to sing about, baby Jesus, and I didn't want to sing about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, so I'd put it off for years, and then I agreed to do it if I could do originals, which was more about inclusion, about people, the idea that we're all born in the same house. We're just raised in different rooms, and what a world it would be if we could get along together, etc. So we wrote these originals with that theme in mind, and it turned out lovely. So we did that as a sort of holiday album.
And I'm thinking back to, and you're talking about albums, thinking back to obviously 86, The Thin Red Line. Diamond Sun is actually, my personal favorite, but, there's no denying that The Thin Red Line really kind of, really catapulted you guys. But that 80s music scene, though, had, I don't even know if we'll ever see people in the music scene like this again, but there was just so many iconic people back then. Prince, Michael Jackson. I mean, so much great pop music being made. Talk about like a snapshot in time, or and was there more pressure then because there was so much great competition, to keep putting out great songs and great albums?
Definitely. I mean, looking back, if I was talking to a young artist today who was experiencing success, one of the things I would tell them to do is take a moment to reflect on what you've done and how you got here, and give yourself a pat in the back, and be grateful. We lived in an era where it took 15 years, 20 years to make your first album, and then they wanted your second album in 20 weeks.
Right.
So,
yeah, pressure.
So we, when the first one hit, we were constantly moving ahead of it. So when it was climbing up the charts in Canada, we'd already moved on to America. By the time we were hitting it in America, we were in Europe. By the time we were conquering sort of Europe, they were asking us to come back to Canada and get on the second album, and that was Diamond Sun. So the pressure was high and costly. I don't regret it. I mean, if I had the head on my shoulders that I have now, there's definitely things I would have done differently and changed it. But I mean, who gets to do what we did? And right. It was fantastic. And cross-pollinating with many of those artists, whether it's just meeting them or actually befriending them or actually working with them, it was just incredible.
And I particularly harken back to, I think a lot of people, certainly when they hear the name Glass Tiger, people automatically, probably think Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone, a huge, massive hit for you guys. But, such great songwriting. I'm such a fan of I'm Still Searching. To me, that's just a perfect song. Just everything about it is absolutely freaking perfect. But when you're writing a song, though, what is the most important part? Because you said sometimes the main priority for you isn't lyrics first, it's music. But what really goes into building a great song? Because I think a lot of musicians out there nowadays, with so much competition and everybody's trying to chase the same nickel and all these new songs, these influxes of new songs on these platforms, how do you really set yourself apart and write a great song?
Well, I got to go in two directions. Number one, how do you do it today? I don't even know if I know, because it's so eclectic and things that you think could never be a hit become hits. So I have time answering for today, but answering in general, from the genre that I come from and how I would approach a song. Again, I believe that. So when we were writing "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone," and the music started, they were just dabbling with a shuffle beat, with a shuffle beat, and that was interesting. And they started playing the little guitar lick. I immediately, instantaneously at the verse, I sang, "Don't forget me when I'm gone." That was the first thing that came out my mouth. Jim Valens, who had more experience, he immediately said to me, "Dude, that's a great line. That's a great line. Let's pull that aside and we'll hold it." And to me, it meant nothing. I just went, okay. And so we keep dabbling, and I start things like, you take my breath away, and I'm writing all down. And then when you hear me on the demo and I go, da 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 da, I'm just doing la la la's. That's when Valens and his experience came back and said, "Now plant that line." And I went, "Don't forget me when I'm gone." To me, the song, it's hard to say in retrospect, but I feel the melody of "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone" is so powerful that you could move certain lyrics around and it would still be a massive hit.
Yeah.
But that being said, when you find that key line and you deliver it at the right moment, then there's no denying it. So
you got lightning in a bottle. Yeah. It's magical. Yeah. And wow. So kudos, so for people out there that don't know, that's the mark of a great producer right there. A guy like Jim Valance notices that's great, and he picks up on that and encourages that idea to flourish. That's the mark of a great producer. Yeah.
Exactly.
And when you put out the Thin Red Line, how fast was the pressure back in those days? Because then Diamond Sun comes out like 2 years later. So what's that time like at your most grueling between 86 and 88? Is it just on the road constantly?
Yeah. We never stopped. We toured 4 months with Steve Perry and Journey, and then 3 months with Tina Turner, and then we come back and we headlined all of Canada, and then we came back down to the States and we did a big contract for Disney. And then by the time we were doing Disney, they were asking us for the second album. So on any days off, I would fly up to Vancouver and work with Jim Valance and come back to California and Florida for Disney. And it was 18 months of non-stop. And in between all that, you'd go over to the UK and do TV shows, or you go over to Europe and do TV shows. It was just non-stop.
Yeah. I mean, absolute bedlam around that. I mean, but that was still a fun time, though. The 80s was very magical, though.
Because then you've got people looking after you. You've got a road crew. You've got management. So all you have to do is to show up. I just showed up, and everything was ready to go.
And what got you inspired to do music? Was there like a particular artist or a song or an album? What was it really for you, the first thing that you can recall that really resonated with you, that jumpstart this love for music?
The Beatles.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's a pretty standard answer. You know what I mean? You got to give props where props are due. I mean, it's.
I mean, it took me coming to, if I look back on my youth in Scotland, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young crossed over for me. So did James Taylor. I think that would be about it. Maybe America. I think that was by the time I came to Canada. But everything was the Beatles, the Stones, Herman's Hermits, eventually Led Zeppelin and Slade, and with all the British stuff that I grew up on. But there was nothing like the Beatles. And when I was a little boy, I'd get up in front of the class and we'd air guitar for the class. And I always had to be Paul. And we'd pretend we were the Beatles and would sing for everybody. And my dad had a pal whose son made guitars, and this guy made an acoustic guitar for me. My dad probably only paid like $20 for it or something. I don't know. And
the good old days.
I brought it to Canada with me, and I met a guy who taught me a few more chords. And he and I used to go out and sing at parties, and I think we did a couple of weddings. And then I just got the bug, and then I never really thought. I was going to get involved in medicine, hopefully at the time, but 5 scruffy guys showed up at the door, and my mother said, "There's 5 scruffy guys at the door," and someone had heard me singing at a party, and they asked me if I'd join a band, and I thought, "Oh, you're crazy," but I said yes to get rid of them. Yeah. I said I would audition for them. I went out, and the poor guy, the guy who was the lead singer, was told there was no rehearsal that night, so that they could smuggle me in. And they asked me, "What do I know?" And I said, "The Beatles." And they said, "Okay." And we played Get Back. I think we played a Penny, not Penny Lane, Paperback Writer. Yeah. And they were just away. So they asked me to join the band. I mean, the one thing about my voice, I mean, I have a bit of that sort of Lennon McCartney-esque thing going on.
Definitely.
And when back then, sort of impersonating Paul was pretty easy. And so they fell in love with the voice. And I said, okay. And I followed that until we were starving. We had nothing. We were broke. And so I quit, and I said I was going to medicine. And by this time I was an orderly and I was working in autopsies, and I had gone back to nursing school. And when another band called me, and I said, well, I'll come and check it out, but I'm going to be a doctor, so you'll never get me. I'm only doing it as a hobby. And I
Yeah.
went to audition, and they said, what do
A
you
hobby.
know? Beatles. And so we did that, and same reaction. And I did it as a sort of hobby, but it was killing me because but then I was a fully qualified RN, and I was working, say I was doing day shifts, my 7 days, and then going to bars at night and performing, and then sitting in a chair for 3 hours and getting back up and going into the hospital.
Yeah.
So eventually staff and the supervisor called me in, and she said, the staff are worried about you. You're sleepwalking on the job, and we don't want to fire you. So why don't you take a leave of absence?
Yeah.
And I did. And we got a gig opening up for Boy George, completely unsigned. We played Maple Leaf Gardens, opening up for Culture Club.
Yeah.
And
That's big.
I was on the night shift. I sang for 20,000 people and was slinging bedpans at 11 o'clock at night.
Wow. That's crazy.
I did that the Friday, Saturday, and then the phone rang on the Monday, and the voice said, you're a star. And I said, what? Who is this? And it was Capitol Records. And
Wow.
they asked me to come down and sign.
Wow, that is absolutely an amazing story. One thing that made "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone" a huge song, obviously, is the presence of the legendary Bryan Adams on there. Still a relationship with Bryan? Do you get to see him much?
No, we don't see each other. We text every now and again. He's a big Chelsea fan, and I'm a Glasgow Rangers fan, but my English team would be Chelsea.
Yeah.
So every now and again, and when I had my stroke, Bryan was one of the first people.
Sure.
I'm a good friend of Julian Lennon's and Bryan, and both of them were probably the first two major artists that texted and said, hey, motherfucker, get up out your bed and get back.
Yeah.
You know,
the kind of encouragement you need in that situation.
Oh yeah. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Get up.
Yeah.
And so Bryan was one of the first to do that. But we haven't crossed paths in a long time.
And now we talked earlier about the stroke. Obviously, I'm 50 years old. Not any of us are in our 20s anymore. Do you ever think about with all the accomplishments that you've done, is there a stop date on doing music? Or I get the sense from most musicians I talk to on here, it's kind of like I'll do this till the wheels fall off type of thing. Is that the case in your situation?
I don't think so. I mean, because I'm a little different than the average musician, like I'm doing an online course based on my other book, and I've done a lot of public speaking. I love helping people. I love chatting to people. So I could be just as happy getting on a plane and flying to Chicago because there's an event that wants me to get up there and speak.
Right.
I paint. I enjoy painting. I've sold quite a few of my paintings. I write as I'm working on this fictional book. So I'm a very creative soul, and all of it gives me pleasure. If I was to write a song and you made it a hit, I'd be just as happy as if I made it a hit.
Yeah.
So as far as actually performing goes, it really is based upon my voice, and I guess the body getting up there and doing it.
Yeah.
Right now, getting on planes and flying from A to B and whatnot, I'm okay with that. I just had 2 hectic weekends back to back where it takes 3 days out of your life to get up on stage for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But the voice is the key. And, touch wood, my voice is still at the top of its game. I'm in all my original keys. I haven't dropped a key in anything. And as long as that lasts, I'll do it for a few more years.
Now, that kind of longevity is impressive. Now, you just brought up the voice. Are you a guy who puts any stock into any kind of throat care? Did you yourself have a regimen, or are you just a guy that just has this natural gift and can do this? Is there maintenance involved?
Well, if I told you that Guinness is probably my my protocol, that would be the answer. I'm just a pub singer, man.
You're keeping it lubricated at least.
Yeah, I have this ability. As long as I don't have a flu, the only thing that, when you get phlegm on your vocal cords,
Yes.
it's the only thing that stops me. Other than that, I get to where I'm going. I do warm up. I hit the stage. I belt it out. That's it.
Now, psychologically, going back for a moment, and this is again like the nurse in me being interested in this. When you have the stroke, were you worried at all about any effects? Because you are the vocalist for Glass Tiger, but you do play a fair amount of guitar as well. Did that affect you or your playing ability at all, or were you worried that it might?
Yes. The first thing I worried about was my voice. When the paralysis hit, I was completely paralyzed on my right side. So when the paralysis started coming, it feels like someone is pouring cement over your body, and it travels. And for me, it was on my right side, which probably, I don't know whether it looks like the left side is I'm facing.
Yeah.
But it came on the right side, and it stopped behind my right ear and just around my right eye. And my right arm and my right leg were completely paralyzed.
Yeah.
And it took me 9 months of recovery to get back. I had a stammer. I was like that for a while. But that passed. And then it just took me building up my strength physically. And I feel that maybe my voice was gifted with a little more, if it's possible, a little more passion for what I'd been through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now I don't play. I play guitar at home, but I prefer not to play it live. It's just too heavy on my arm.
Yeah.
And I'm 66, so I'm not going to be jumping around the stage anyway. But it really just is a relationship between me and my voice and the audience.
Yeah. Now, the core of Glass Tiger, obviously, you, Wayne, Sam, Al, is everybody kind of, for lack of a better term, rowing in the same direction at this stage of your career as far as their involvement in Glass Tiger? Everybody kind of feels on board and the itinerary and all of it works for everybody, or is that dynamic different for some of the other guys in the band?
Wayne is in a slightly different direction right now. Wayne created this company. I think it's called Pod, P-O-D. Wayne has been a student of the cosmos and the stars since for as long as I've known him.
Yeah.
And he developed this amazing backyard astronomy pods.
Yeah, I've seen them. They're incredible.
So that's taken up all his time. For the rest of us, the schedule works. We make sure it works, and we all go out like-minded. And like I say, we've got quite a few summer dates coming up. We've got some late fall, early winter dates coming up, and they're already penned in. Yeah.
As a band, though, is there any interest, or is it economically viable at all? Because you guys, historically, you don't come down to the States and do a lot of touring. As you mentioned earlier in the interview, what does it take to get shows down here for Glass Tiger, for people that may want to see you guys down here in the States?
Okay, well, you'd have to have it begins and ends with a promoter.
Right.
You have someone who's willing to work with the band to bring us down. Now, if that was just a cross-border thing, if that was Buffalo, Detroit, I guess even maybe Philadelphia or something like that, or Minneapolis or Seattle, then it could be viable. We'd have to be. We'll talk Buffalo and Detroit for a moment. That would be very viable if a promoter says, hey, Glass Tiger, do you want to come down and do my club, do a great club?
Yeah.
We did in New York, by the way. We went through and we did that in New York, and it was great. But if someone says, hey, would you come to Denver or Los Angeles or Texas, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, America, people won't know this, the American government hasn't made it easy for band. If an American band wants to come to Canada, they can just show up at the border.
No problem. Yeah.
Come over and play and entertain people.
Yep.
America won't let you do that. You have to have all these permits, and that alone is very costly.
Yeah.
And then your crew, they make it super expensive for your crew so that you'll use Americans, which, you know, isn't make or break. We could do that. You could use Americans. But America has made it extremely difficult to come over, period, and perform. So when you get that club owner in New York or Detroit who's making it easy and saying, hey, guys, come on over, then the American government says, oh, no, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
We're going to all fortune to come and do it. So the best way to do it is to be part of a bigger thing. Is if someone, like before COVID, we were getting ready to come over and be part of an 80s event whereby,
that would be great. Yeah.
Whereby a promoter had done his homework and had taken care of all the problematic stuff.
Yeah, the logistics.
All we had to do was get there, and then
right.
COVID. So any fans that are listening, you know, we'd love to come over and play. Love it. It's just not as easy as, hey, let's just come.
Right. There's nothing very rock and roll about fucking permits. Jesus.
No. It's a real shame.
And so as far as the music business is concerned right now at this present time, you know, there's obviously a lot going on platforms. You know, the music business has changed so much. Do you think that we'll see, you know, we talked about some of those 80s stars, those just iconic people, your Bruce Springsteens, your Princes, your Michael Jacksons. Has the music business turned so much that we won't see people like that again? Iconic people that separate themselves?
Well, if what I'm about to say, if Bob Lefsetz was listening in, he would call me a cynical old fogey or whatever, but Bob isn't right about everything all the time. I don't think the attention span is there.
Yeah.
To allow these. Of course you can be successful. Of course you can make a quick kill and make a lot of money. That's what these artists are doing. But are you going to see Michael Jackson? Are you going to see George Michael, Bruce Springsteen? I tend to think, I mean, never say never.
Right.
Never say never, but I tend to think not, because I just don't know that the attention span's there.
Yeah.
The turnover is instantaneous.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's sad.
It's so fragmented that I don't know if anybody can hang on long enough to let Bruce Springsteen grow up.
Yeah.
Springsteen.
As a guy who spent so many years in the industry, though, you know, and now we see the platforms and artists really having to get out there and slog it out on the road and hope that they can sell a few more T-shirts and you know, just it's really become a grind. With these platforms, what could have the music business have done? Should they have got in on the ground floor of this and found a way to harness it and get you guys paid better?
I think they have done it already, but they did it for themselves.
Okay.
The record companies are already in bed with all of the platforms, making fortunes and not giving a fuck about how much the artists are making.
It's very sad. It is.
That's it in a nutshell. And one of the things I'd like to do before my eyes close forever is be part of a movement that can work artist to artist, royalty to royalty, platform to platform.
Yeah.
that cuts that out. I had a conversation with a major record label a few years back when the technology was beginning to go down the road that it's now gone down, and basically asking them if they'd like to go to bed together. I'll bring this and you bring that, and we'll try this new NFT crypto, blockchain, know. And they were very interested, but only for themselves.
Right.
They wanted to do it if they had control of it all, so that they could do the payouts.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So they're already in bed with the platforms.
Yeah.
But to manipulate it to suit their own purposes.
And when you look back on Glass Tiger's career now, like, what do you hope that people, think of the Glass Tiger legacy? Obviously, I said it earlier. I mean, amazing songwriting. And I think it begins and ends with great songs. That's just my opinion. But what is the legacy, or what do you hope that the legacy is?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, anybody younger than 45 to 50 may know as one-hit wonders for "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone."
Yeah,
something like that. Those under 45 and up, they know the true legacy of the songwriting of this band.
Yeah.
When we do a 60-minute set, when someone asks us to do a 60-minute set for those who have loved Glass Tiger, or those who are on the peripheral, they're discovering us and whatnot through their parents even, a 60-minute set of Glass Tiger is just like, wow, song after song after song after song. Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone, Sunday, My Town, Diamond Sun, Thin Red Line, You're What I Look For, I'm Still Searching.
Yeah.
And when the show's over, the people who are sort of discovering us, they go, wow, I'd forgotten how many great songs you guys have.
Yeah.
So that would be a good enough legacy for me, to know that people realize that the songwriting was at such a high level that they would remember us for that.
Yeah. Crafting songs that are memorable. I think, as I said in my previous statement, I think it kind of begins and ends there. Now, I was going to let you off the hook, Alan FREW, but I just can't. This is usually my most polarizing question. But if I'm dropping Alan FREW on a desert island and he can only take one album with him, what's the album? What's the desert island pick for you?
You're only giving me one.
One, yeah.
It would probably be Sgt. Pepper's.
Okay, fair. I mean,
it's the White Album, Abbey Road, Sgt. Pepper's. But I'm also a great Frank Sinatra fan. I love listening to Frank.
Yeah.
But if you forced me with one, it would probably be Sgt. Pepper's.
Fair enough. I don't think anybody would possibly call into question a pick like that. Listen, I've kept you for a while, man. It's been such an honor and a pleasure and a privilege getting the chance to talk to you. I hope we can keep in touch and we can do it again somewhere down the road. This has been so enjoyable.
I'm sorry it took so long.
No worries. I tell people all the time, and I get people that have to cancel a lot. But as I mentioned earlier, I have a day job. I'm on my feet all day. I work in healthcare. I've got 3 grown kids, 6 grandkids. This is more like a side hustle that just happens to be starting to get some traction and going well. But it's still something that I completely understand when someone says, hey, a real life happened and I have to reschedule this and move this. I certainly don't take any offense to people that are extremely busy and, up to their eyeballs with a lot of work.
Well, I'll give it back to you. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was a pleasure. I don't know how long we've been talking, but it feels like 5 minutes.
Almost an hour.
And that's the sign of a great relationship between interviewer and interviewee.
Thank you.
You're great.
I appreciate you saying that.
Where are you located?
I'm in upstate New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not far from Canada. And if it wasn't so damn well, I guess it's not really hard to get into Canada if I wanted to come and see you guys. I think now it's not as easy as it once was, just going through customs and just you got anything to declare and then letting you over. I know now I think you at least have to have an enhanced driver's license, I believe.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I've never had anybody have any difficulty pop up here from the States. Never.
Yeah.
Never.
But I certainly would love to see Glass Tiger down here in New York State, though. That would be fantastic too, though.
I'd love that. I'd love that.
Yeah. But this has been a real pleasure getting the chance to talk to you, Alan. Thank you so much for doing it, man. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye. What can I say, folks? Rex Ruger rides again. That's right, delivering you yet another legend. And that guy is a legend right there. That is the great, I'll say it, the Paul McCartney of Canada. That is the great Alan FREW of Glass Tiger, singer, songwriter, guitarist, motivational speaker, nurse, we just learned, stroke survivor, a true rock warrior. That guy is an OG right there, man. So put some respect on their name. Glass Tiger rolled us out so many great songs. Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone, which was ultimately what I had written down here and forgot to say to him. I was going to make sure that I used the line on him. Well, Alan, this has been a great interview, and just want to make sure that you don't forget me when I'm gone. So there, I still used it on my audience. Better late than never, I guess. There's my drum roll for my classic line that I squandered. In the face of adversity and pressure and my awe for Alan, I completely choked and didn't deliver my line. But that was what I was going to say when me and Alan closed our interview. Alan, make sure that you don't forget me when I'm gone, because my heart would break. I have loved you for so long. No, never mind. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. But anyway, that was thoroughly enjoyable. I want to thank the great Alan FREW of Canadian rock band, legendary rock band, Glass Tiger. That was such a priviler. All right, I just morphed the word privilege and honor. Priviler. That was a big, huge priviler to have gotten the chance to talk to a fucking guy whose music is just ingrained in my fucking very being. The soundtrack to my life, as I've said with many other artists. That was a great one. So enjoyable. I thank him so much for coming on here and doing that. Me and him have been running around in circles, as he said at the end of the interview, talking to each other, chatting to each other, text messaging. We've been doing this for months and months and months. So it's almost old hat at this point. We are buddies. That's right. Two great frontmen having a little chin wag. And hopefully I looked as good as Alan did. 66 years old, and the guy is still fucking kicking ass and probably burying guys fucking half of his age. So hope you guys enjoyed that. And until we get together and we do this thing again, remember, kids, to take it easy and keep it sleazy.